Hey guys, Phil Balmhard here. So for today's video, I'll be working on another Bowie knife. This one's going to be kind of a special Bowie knife. Sort of a design that's going to be a little bit different than what you guys expect. It's a custom request, custom order. So the customer wanted me to make this kind of specific knife. This is going to be kind of like a original Bowie knife design. So the internet has sort of come to dub this sort of knife a Jesse Clift Bowie, but basically all it is a knife that is 9.5 inches long, straight back, so basically a drop point, full tank construction, slab handles, and 1/4 inch thick. So this is basically just a hunting knife, and basically the story goes that Jim Bowie's older brother Rezin Bowie, long before the sandbar fight and before Jim Bowie became famous, Rezin Bowie had his local blacksmith Jesse Clift make him a hunting knife, and he wanted it, 9 1/4, 9.5 inches long, 1/4 inch thick, 1.5 inches wide. And once his brother Jim got into a little trouble, shall we say, Rezin felt that Jim ought to be armed at all times, so he gave him his hunting knife. And this was sort of laid out in a letter by Rezin Bowie long after Jim Bowie's death, and he had become famous as being a knife fighter, and become famous for this knife. And the Bowie knife became a famous knife design in America. He sort of laid this out in a letter to a newspaper, I believe, just sort of trying to set the record straight. Certainly interesting history. We'll never really truly know the origins of the Bowie knife. And then the connection to Jesse Clift was laid out in a letter by Rezin's granddaughter, stated that she witnessed this local blacksmith making the knife. So again, whether or not that's true or not, we don't know, but it is kind of now part of the Bowie knife lore. We're kind of calling this the Jesse Clift reproduction. There's quite a few other videos online talking about Jesse Clift reproduction knives. I would kind of prefer to call it the Rezin Bowie. I think that sounds a little bit cooler, a little more accurate to the historical provenance, but regardless, what I've got here is a piece of 80 CRV2. I've already cut this down to 1.5 inches wide. This is a 1/4 inch thick, so basically I'm just going to forge in a drop point, forge in a tang. So please forgive the horror movie lights I got going on in the shop. Whole neighborhood's having some electrical issues, so this is not just the shop, it's in my house and it's everywhere, so it is what it is. We're just going to carry on and see if we can forge out an original Bowie knife. Alright, so the house has officially lost power, so is the shop, so I've got a battery powered Bowie light going right now. We'll see how long that lasts, but that's why we don't have the normal lighting set up. Alright, I think we're actually in pretty good shape for the point. This will be our cutting edge, since this will be a drop point. Not going to do too much edge bevel forming. Kind of take out this little bump here, maybe do a little bit. I have a little bit of a drop in our drop point. I do want kind of that straighter spine, so hopefully doing more hammering on the edge will kind of straighten that out. Again, we are not going for the clip point that we decide. Also, power's back on, so that's nice. I think we're good on the blade shape. So we'll just measure out where our 9.5 inches is going to be. We'll start doing the handle. Okay, so we got a pretty decent handle shape set in there. I'm going to cut off this excess flat stock that I don't need. Maybe flare that out a little bit. So right now we have a little bit of a curve. I actually kind of like that. So we got our knife is ground, got the holes drilled out. Had to anneal the handle to get those holes through. So for the handle material, I got some Peruvian walnut. I got the handles traced out on the wood here and the hole location. So I'm going to go ahead and drill these out, and we'll cut these slabs out and get them fitted to the handle. Alright, so we got the blade quenched, tempered it in the oven, soaked it in vinegar overnight, cleaned it off on the wire wheel, and then blued it. So we're ready to epoxy the handles on there. First I'm going to clean up the inside of the handle, get down to the metal so that the epoxy has a little bit better place to adhere to. Okay, so we got our handle slabs glued on. They are quite the mess, so we'll get these cleaned up on the big grinder. And I'll do some hand sanding on there, and I'll also put in the edge bevel. Alright, so here's what our knife is looking like. Blade's fully sharpened, blued, handle sanded and stained, so we're in good shape. So last thing we're going to do is throw a coat of brie wax on here. It's like a protectant for the handle. This is some interesting stuff, but it actually does give it a kind of a protective coating. Helps keep the stain from just getting lifted off when it gets in contact with water. Because I've noticed that the Danish oil doesn't stick around long once you get it wet. But it just sort of gives it a nice kind of clean luster that looks really nice. Helps smooth, gives the handle a much smoother feel as well. Alright, so that is done. Let's do some cut and test with it. Alrighty, so here's a look at the finished Rezin Bowie. This thing came out pretty cool. I'm happy with the way it came out. As far as the parameters are concerned, we hit all the technical specifics. So blade is 9.5 inches long, 1/4 inch thick, and 1.5 inches wide. So it's got a real comfortable handle. It's a broad handle, so I made the handle slabs very thin. You can get away with a wide handle if you keep it thin. Doing those cutting tests was a lot of fun. This thing cut really well. Like on that manila rope chop, it went through it no problem on the first cut, which for me very rarely happens. So maybe that's a technique thing, but I mean, it went through it like butter. I was impressed. So had so much fun cutting it. I even pulled out a cardboard tube and chopped that up because this thing just likes to cut. So and that kind of speaks to the design, I suppose. You know, with this 9.5 inches long, you get enough reach and enough power and heft in the blade that it does really good slashes, chops, and cuts. But it's not getting too big and heavy, like with the blade width being 1.5 inches rather than, you know, like my normal 2 inches, like on a Bowie knife that I normally do. It still keeps it very fast and nimble. Yeah, so there's our balance point. So it's still forward the handle, which gives you really good cutting power, but there's still enough weight towards the hand that it keeps it fast and nimble. Personally, that's my preferred balance point on a knife. You know, if the balance point is right here, where, you know, some people have called that the quote-unquote perfect balance point, it's like, yes, the knife is perfectly balanced, but is it perfectly balanced for the task? But with this knife, I feel like the balance is perfectly suited for what you want to do with it. Allegedly, when Rezin Bowie had this knife made, he wanted it for hunting, and it would definitely work great for that. The blade profile is great for field dressing game. It's big enough and stout enough that you could chop through ribs and stuff like that. You could quarter an animal with this. Now, a lot of people nowadays don't like to use the big giant knives for hunting purposes, but you know, I've seen it done with a large butcher knife, even bigger than this. Historically, a big hunting knife was also used to dispatch game. So you'd be hunting with a pack of hounds, they'd catch that animal, and you'd go up to it and you know, stab it in the heart, and that's how you would finish the game off. I don't know if the Bowie brothers were hunting like that, but I remember reading an account where Theodore Roosevelt actually went hunting like that, mountain lion hunting, where the dogs would hold the lion down, and he would go up there with his Bowie knife and stab it in the heart and finish it off that way. You know, and in the 1820s, 1830s, pistols were all single shot. So once you fired that shot of your pistol, a big blade was your best self-defense option. So, but as a fighting knife, I think this would work great. I mean, blade's long enough that you get really good cutting power. You know, that 1/4 inch thick. You get some weight and mass to the blade in that dimension rather than the width dimension. So this thing is able to do some really powerful cuts, and it's still very fast and agile in the hand, which is important. And you can also stab with it, like I stabbed through that butternut squash. I think this knife is a nice homage to the original Bowie knife. Simple design with just the slab handles, but a strong design. One that's equally suited to the woods and to defending your life if need be. I'm happy with the way that the polish on the full tang came out. Nice and clean. A little bit of a distal taper to the tang. That's very in keeping with the knives of that period, where not only would the spine of the knife have a distal taper, but also have a distal taper in the tang area as well. And that's just sort of a natural byproduct of the forging process. You know, shaping this entire thing on the anvil using blacksmithing techniques was important to me because I wanted to make sure I made something that was in keeping with the story of the original Bowie knife, which is that it was made by a local blacksmith. So I wanted it to be something that could be made on the anvil. So, you know, it's got a little bit of shape to the handle, but not too terribly much, you know. Now, during the 1800s, a lot of times they just had sort of straight handles, you know, like the old butcher knives, but those were factory-made knives. So this is something that could have been done by a blacksmith of the early 1830s. So I think it's really cool. I'm happy with the way it came out. I think it's authentic to the spirit of the original Bowie knife. So here's a look at the sheath. The customer just wanted a simple pouch style sheath, which is what I did, and I think it fits the knife really well. It works great. Did some wet molding to lock in the handle, so the sheath actually secures the knife really well. Rather than stitch the belt loop to the sheath itself, you know, that always risks cutting it when you're putting the knife in and out. I usually make my belt loops completely separate from the existing sheaths, but on this one I sort of went with the kind of cowboy holster style, where this piece of leather is connected to the original sheath, and then there's this band of leather secured it with a rivet. So a nice, quick, easy way to secure this, and it keeps the line simple. I didn't want to block the wet molding on the handle because, you know, I think it looks nice. So I'm happy with the way that the sheath came out. You got a big generous belt loop, so whatever size belt you got, you can throw this on there. So all right, that's all I got for you guys today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you want to get your own custom knife, you can find the Etsy web store. I got a link in the description box for that. You can message me there if there's a particular type of knife you want. But also other of my work I post on there for sale. So you can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Keep up with my latest and greatest work. But as always, I appreciate the support. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, be more Viking.